Hey everyone, we're at the Lian Li suite at CES 2019 now. They have a couple of pretty cool products. We'll have some B-roll of them, like the TU150 follow-up to an old mini-ITX case. There's also improvements to things like the O11 Dynamic. Of course, you all likely know this case. The O11 Dynamic was made by, where's that asshole's name?
Dude, what? What are you talking about?
Before that, this video is brought to you by the Gigabyte Z390 Aorus Master motherboard, which comes equipped with one of the more powerful Z390 VRMs for heavier overclocks on the new 9th gen Intel CPUs. The Aorus Master is also one of the few motherboards with a real heatsink this generation, featuring a mix of high surface area fins and looks-oriented cover blocks. Oh, and it's also got updated RGB illumination. Learn more at the link below. So, as I was saying, Der8auer, I didn't know he was he was there. But Der8auer worked on the original version of this case, although it looks like his name has been stripped of it completely and replaced with the Razer logo. So let's move on. Other things at the Lian Li suite. This is pretty cool. This is a distro plate. It's an EK plate. My understanding is originally this plate for the front panel of the O11 Dynamic, which is targeted as a water cooling case, was created for, I guess, the power spec line of EK systems. I think they were sold or are sold in micro centers. But hopefully this might be coming to market as a standalone item for those of you who purchased the O11 Dynamic as a standalone case for DIY. So it's pretty cool. It's got a pump, a flow meter, and when you look in through the front, it does kind of look like the entire system is just filled with mineral oil or something. It's got the aquarium effect. So no pricing. I don't have a product name. I don't have a release date. This is very much a maybe. Everything in this suite, actually, for this show is concept, which is really cool because typically for CES, you get mostly finished products, and in the case where the company can't finish a product fast enough, like Corsair, you end up with a bunch of very boring things. So very cool to see concepts. Another concept that Lian Li has here is a 240mm CLC. It's a pump integrated into the radiator. This isn't a new idea, but it's a good way to bypass Asetek's patent, which they have successfully sued companies for in the US, like Cooler Master. So pump is integrated in the radiator. That does pose some fitment challenges with other cases. It won't fit in every single 240 slot that one with just a literal 240 would fit in. And also if you move the fans to the other side, that poses a bit of a challenge, but still kind of interesting and a good way, again, to diversify the market. The bigger thing here, and I'm afraid to pull this magnet off, is I guess if you like RGB, but you look at this and you're like, that's just too much, then you can hide 70% of it and show the rest. So anyway, let Lian Li know what you think of this, because this is a concept. Pricing is all TBD. It'll be rough to bring it down to EVGA CLC 240 levels or down to Corsair H100i levels, because that's expensive. This is different. It's not mass supply from Asetek, so cost will be a big challenge. And the biggest thing is just going to be, do you like how it looks? And let Lian Li know in the comments. And if you have specific ideas of what you would rather see, let them know, because the only way to really compete with something where you're not going with Asetek and can bring the cost down is going to be through looks. So let them know what you think. We haven't tested performance really. Der8auer does have an overclock he pulled out of his ass that he set on the system. I think it took him about 15 seconds. So it runs with the 5 gigahertz, like 1.234, 1.232 volts. And that's all I can tell you. If it comes to market, and it probably will, we'll test it in our standardized test bench and see how it does. Like I said, performance might be totally fine. We've seen what it looks like, and the impeller it looks similar to the Dynatron impeller that was used in the Antec Cooler 1250, and not too dissimilar from the Asetek Gen 6, which is cool. But again, we'll need to see it more in the field. So interesting product, total concept. Let them know what you think. We don't need to talk about the Razer branding. And let's move on to the mini-ITX case next. So this one is supposed to be $100. It follows up an old case that we have, actually. It's a really small ITX box with a handle on it. The old one, though, was just kind of like flappy, and it was always exposed. So this one is a stealth handle, which is neat. Again, concept, it needs to be strengthened, things like that. The mechanism for putting it back in, bringing it back up needs to be worked on. But as a concept, we're liking what we've seen because it does reinsert to be kind of out of the way and discreet. And then if we pull the panel off, and we have footage of this too, all of the cabling for the system integrates and hides under that top panel, which is a byproduct of the way the handle is done. So always cool to see how a product feature can accidentally enable another product feature. And that's what this is, because since the handle is sort of submersible, the end result is that all the cabling has a bit of extra space to hide there in the top panel. The rest of the, I don't know how to put it back. The rest of the concept case, though, the TU150, should have 2 fans, probably two 120s. Not 100% final on that, not 100% final on what type of fan, but 2 120 fans likely is the target, and $100 for the price point, if I didn't already say that. Release date TBD. The release date for the cooler, though, if it does happen, because I forgot to mention, it should be about Q2 for this year. So yeah, it's a small box. Still some changes being made. For example, it might be elevated a bit more from the bottom to allow the GPUs to breathe better, because with RTX, all GPUs are pretty much 2.8 slots these days, all video cards, and that poses an issue. So it might have some more elevation there in the final design. Otherwise, for side ventilation, it is actually a significant amount of space, but again, we'll see how it finalizes. So despite being closed off in the front, there's a good amount of space in the side. And then I think that pretty much covers the mini-ITX case. Semi-portable though, so cool to see that. One of the other prototypes here at the Lian Li suite is the DK04F. And just to read the card here, the visibility of the desk glass can be controlled to become clear or froggy. And the glass has a button here. So this is just kind of a, again, prototype status. I think the plan is to integrate the button into the desk itself along with the other auto raising and lowering buttons. But you hit the switch and then you just get a foggy glass. So Lian Li has done desk systems, cases, I'm hesitant to call them before. They're really cool. It's a really niche market. It's obviously expensive because it's a small market and it's gigantic. So this is like, let's just get the price out of the way. $1,200 is probably about what you're looking at, but very interesting and unique. And as far as having like a gimmick on your product goes, that's a pretty cool one. So I think it's just an LCD basically, and then it powers on or off based on the status of the button or the switch. For other features of it though, I keep wanting to say case, and it feels so weird to call it a case. There is plenty of ventilation on the bottom. We have shots of that. So ventilation on the bottom, there's a radiator mounted here presently, blows air sort of in this way. The end result or the end goal would be to mount fans here in the back and exhaust that air. Presently, the system's not fully complete because the wiring, you'll see some of the wiring in the B-roll. That's not final, that's just for prototyping. So that'll be cleaned up later, but fans can go in back there. I think there's a spot maybe for some ventilation back here as well. And then they have a custom loop setup in here. But there's so much damn clearance from the motherboard to the glass, I guess you could put a small tower cooler in if you wanted to for some reason. The glass is 7 millimeters thick. It is extremely heavy. And it's got a small steel plate or a plate between the liquid crystal display or whatever the membrane may be and the glass. So that's how it's supported to make sure it's held in place. Otherwise, it's a cool display piece. And unfortunately, no, my present understanding is you cannot output your display to the table. But I did ask. So that's it for this one. Let's move on to the next product. And the last one will teleport here because it wasn't here a second ago. But this is a larger version of the O11 Dynamic. So an O11 Dynamic XL or double XL or something. Currently, O11 WGX ROG certified version 2. But whether or not that's final, we'll see. Again, concept products here today. So if you know the O11 Dynamic, you know most of the idea of this case. It is a bit larger, and most of that goes to clearance in the bottom. So the O11 Dynamic, from experience, you have depending on motherboard, with ATX boards, in a lot of cases, you have pretty limited room for fans in the bottom, and depending on the fan, might not fit at all. But you definitely have limited room for a radiator and fans in the bottom. This will account for that, and also just because it is sort of annoying to add fans to the bottom of a case since you have to flip it over. There's just a fan bracket, radiator bracket for the bottom. So you can install your fans that way. Kind of a small, nice feature, small iterative steps for this one. The top is another example of not really a game-changing feature, but there's a latch back here, and you push it, and then you can pull the panel off if you don't want to use the screw. But there's a screw included. If you would prefer the security of a thumb screw, that's still an option. So 2 small changes there. Another small change, actually, if we kind of flip this towards the back has a couple of plates that pull out. So there's this one here. If you end up doing a vertical GPU mount or something like that, you could pull that out for passing your cables through, DisplayPort, things like that. So that pulls off, otherwise it's installed stock. This pulls off where you can get access to hard drives for really easy, sort of quick install. There's not a SATA connector in there, so it's not really a full hot swap. but you can quickly get them in and out. And then the rest of the features of this case are basically the O11 Dynamic features. So I guess I'll point this out too. On the side here, some hard drive sleds, if you wanted to mount some hard drive sleds. And then the last feature for this one is a 120mm back support. So previously, I think it's about 80 or 93 or something like that for the back fan. It's pretty small to a point where you have to go to Noctua to get an actually good one. So now 120mm support in the back, which is a pretty big deal just for getting air out of the case. But that covers the Lian Li suite for CES 2019. Check back soon. We should have a video with Der auer. I think he's watching me right now, but I'm not sure, and I'm afraid to turn my head. So subscribe to catch that. You can go to patreon.com/gamersnexus to help us out directly, or store.gamersnexus.net, and I will see you all next time. Is he there?